Welcome to the Sacred Child Summit. I'm your host, Kathleen Sherrick, and I'm pleased to welcome today Sophia Michalopoulou. She is based on the island of Corfu in Greece after many years of international work and travel. Sophia is an aquatic perinatal therapist. Oh, I love the whole sound of that, Sophia. She's a newborn and baby swimming educator, as well as a pregnancy and birth doula. Her work is dedicated to re-sensitizing parents, families, and communities to the invisible natural boundaries of babies and children who are unable to speak or protect or assert themselves. She has focused on early year education for the past 10 years and supports the entire birth journey from preconception to newborn life in and with water. While immersed in warm water herself, Sophia began to remember her own birth journey and developed an awareness of birth from a baby's perspective. Her experience of vanishing twin syndrome drew her deeper into the waters of her own psyche to remember more of who she is, while also understanding how water supports, accelerates, and amplifies the process of remembering. Sophia also supports adults to remember and integrate more of their own birth journeys and experiences so that the unified field that we create as a community can support the next generation to remember more of who they innately are rather than who we might want them to be. Welcome, Sophia.
Wow, Kathleen, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me on the Sacred Child Summit. Thank you for your audience that are listening. Yeah, it's an honor to be here and to be sharing something that I'm deeply passionate about.
And making quite a difference in people's lives around Sophia. And so if we start from the beginning of like, why water? What is it about water that has drawn you to it for your life's work?
Beautiful question. It is an important question. I guess I was lucky enough to grow up on an island where water was just a natural environment we played and learned in. And it is my happy place. It's it's where I go to relax, release, connect, socialize. So I guess my life revolved around water. And what I didn't expect it to become is a vehicle through which I explore my work and I support babies and children in. It's sort of been a journey that's unfolded through time that in a way reflects my own healing and my own remembering, rather than I'm going to go and do this with water. And if you ask anyone listening in right now, and the question would be, bring into your awareness a memory of water. So maybe just walking into a pool, being on the beach and having that first summer dive, a shower, or being in the bath. It's already there. The feeling, the sense of water is so embodied that it's really easy for the whole body to sort of remember what being immersed in water feels like. And most people have a good sensation relating to it, right?
And do you think this is because of the experience in utero?
Absolutely. I mean, we've all been born. We've all spent the first 9 months immersed completely in fluid. So it's an innate state. Our body recognizes that. And I guess that's exactly why this fluid immersion is the right container to remember birth in.
It's so beautiful. In so many different traditions around the world, the different elements like air, earth, fire, maybe metal, among all the elements, water seems to be the one that reflects or that symbolizes emotions.
Absolutely. It is, I mean, for me, water is the great mother somehow. There is this whole trusting water is like trusting life. Allowing water to flow through you is allowing life to flow through you. And it's the same supporting a birth in water is how can I trust, allow the water, the baby to, in a way, flow through. There's something, I mean, apart from the fact that it's an incredibly precious resource and it's becoming more and more so on the planet today, I think there is something more to water that we're awakening to right now. Even scientists sort of agree they don't know everything about water. It's quite a multi-dimensional element with mechanics and qualities that we're not fully understanding how it works. And for me, there's this sense of connection. I call it the unified element. It carries a blueprint of uniformity, and you can be fully, let's say, a complete individual, a drop of water, but the ocean at the same time. And so it kind of helps integrate this idea that we are a unique being essence, but also completely interconnected on all levels. And water sort of accesses and allows us access to all levels of our being.
How do you, it's such a beautiful description, and that water is kind of continuing to reveal itself to us as a worldwide container for it as well. How do you, in your work, and I love the whole term, aquatic perinatal therapist, how do you support babies and their families with water through the birth process or whatever? How do you do this?
It's amazing how the lack of the right container, meaning the right temperature, the right size to support a birth in or to support newborns and babies in, not having that on the island of Corfu is what made me travel to find the right container. Because depending on the container, you can work with different people or at different depths, and temperature is a really important factor in all of this, in the process of remembering, but also, of course, you've got a newborn baby, you need warm water. So I'm developing that now in Corfu, where I'm sort of feeling ready to stay in one place. But in the meantime, I work in the sea. So for example, if I'm supporting a pregnant couple, we go to the sea. There's one thing that the sea has that a swimming pool doesn't, and that is waves. Right? And I'm not talking big waves, it's not taking pregnant women into a storm, but water flows with nature's natural wavelengths. And when a pregnant mama comes into the sea, she kind of naturally tunes in and remembers what flowing with water, the waves that start moving through her body when it's time for baby to move through is simulated. It's not just a verbal exercise or a meditation, it's fully immersed in the experience of these wavelengths. And it's the same way baby comes out somehow, you know, baby surfs the surges, surfs the waves. So that's one.
So that rhythm of the ocean, the rhythm of the sea, the natural rhythm that comes from the moon and the tides and the ebbs and the flows, this is where you take families that are readying for birth. And so do you take the mother and the father, or the partner?
The father and the father. And then I also have a small pool with a controlled temperature environment. So this is, I call it my womb pool, because it literally is a much smaller container. There you feel the borders of this pool. It's actually a soft border rather than a concrete border. And that's where I hold space for deeper work. because when the water is warm, the body can really start dropping deeper into itself. There is a sense of feeling safe in one's body. And when a mother can really drop into that sense of safety within herself, she's transmitting to her baby, it's safe to be in a body. And when you're immersed in water and that shows up, it's transmitted. It's a non-verbal experience, because baby is in the womb, is in this fluid, and through resonance, there's this transmission of intention, of awareness that just, it happens. So I guess my role is just to witness, to support. And it's also, and this in a way goes out to parents and educators that work around babies. When I'm immersed in the water with a couple, or even just working with water, what I'm bringing to the water, my awareness gets transmitted because of this unified element. So I guess working on myself and the eyes through which I hold space when working with water becomes paramount. So for me, this hasn't been a journey of, oh, I've got this degree and I've got this degree. It's just been years and years of working on myself, preparing for supporting birth, and working on my own birth material, because then I'm bringing that in the water while supporting a baby or a pregnant couple.
It's so important that you're saying this. Thank you for bringing it up and for highlighting it in our awareness, because it occurs to me, anybody who is around the birthing process or young children, or this whole sacred entry into the physical world, to be mindful of what we carry within our own field, to be mindful of what we intentionally carry, what we might unintentionally carry, and other things, seems to be, it can affect our filters, it can affect how we are perceiving, it can affect our perception. So that in order, so how do you, when you see something happening with a child, are you able to tell? Do they communicate with you through water? Does water communicate with you? How does this speak to you?
Beautiful question. Water is sort of like the third element. In a way, when we enter the water, the question becomes, what am I bringing to the water and what I'm asking from the water? So in a way, the water is the midwife. I'm just asking the question, or sort of, the holder of the space.
So you have called water, one of your quotes was, water is the third person in the relationship. Is that what you're talking about?
It is. And then when, let's say, an emotion shows up or there's tension in the body, it's about witnessing it, yes, but almost dropping deeper into the water. And there's a holding that water does that it's like deep love. Water accepts everything that you bring to it. There's an unconditional holding that happens in water. There's no gravity. And this sort of, this is what really starts bringing us back into those first months in utero, where there is an innocence of being and the curiosity and this sort of vibrational language starting to happen. And of course, the body remembers. The mind wants to chit chat and interpret, but even the brain sort of, goes mushy when we're in warm water. I mean, you take a bath and the brain relaxes. So we start accessing parts of our brain that are pre-verbal. And that's where we realize that memory isn't what we cognitively remember. And I guess what I've developed over time is a sensitivity to very subtle frequencies. So you see, when you drop a drop of water falls into a body of water and you get the ripple effect. An intention, a release, even a thought gets transmitted through the water. So water sort of becomes this intermediary between light, vibration, into form. And sort of the invisible world where, let's say, a soul or a spirit is coming from, through water becomes almost tangible. It's much easier to feel what's going on in a body.
And by a body, you mean both the body that is birthing and the body that is being birthed?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it facilitates communication at first. I mean, I've worked as a therapist many years on land before this. Yeah, so it's not, yeah, water, I realized in water how everything is quickened, how everything is intensified somehow. And I was accessing a level of communion that, yes, it was happening on land, but it's almost instant in water. And being able to contain and hold space for a lot more of what is coming through. And sort of, I guess, showing, it's so easy for parents to see, especially once baby's born and it's their first time in water and they've got their baby there. Having this close eye contact, feeling their baby floating in water, there is a level of connection that can be cultivated from this very early days that lasts a lifetime. And then, of course, you get to see how trusting is Mother of Water.
I was just going to ask you that question. And if water is so beautifully kind of resonant and transparent and all of this, that it can reflect how we're feeling. If you have a mother or a family member or a co-parent who is with the mother through this birthing process and they're not comfortable with water in this way, does baby sense this? How does that affect your work and how do you address that?
Fantastic question. Absolutely. Of course, baby feels it. However, what I would say is that water reflects the fear that's there already. We've all got a quota of fear in our body, so water is just showing up what's already there. So it's good to see it, because when it becomes visible, we can actually address it. So for sure, most families that come to me are people who envision having a water birth. And then they soon realize that with me, it's not just about the water birth, which is, let's say, 48 hours at the end. It's, are you even thinking of conceiving a baby? Come to the water. Have you just conceived? Come to the water. Let's support the whole birth journey with water, because it brings self-awareness for parents, seeing where the holding is in the body, maybe even addressing their own birth material, because the more aware we are of our own stuff and integrate it and become responsible for it, then baby doesn't have to deal with our stuff. Baby can bring through what she is bringing through, which was really my dreaming behind this whole thing. How can we support babies to remember more of who they are, rather than coming down here and dealing with a mess? And of course, in the water, you can have crystals, you can have sound, you can have really a high resonant environment. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try again.
Yeah.
Okay. What
Yeah.
are some examples of the methods that you use to, if it's preconception or after conception, so before the birth process? Is this a welcoming into the sea and rocking with the ocean, or do you invite them into a different container? And what have you found is really a wondrous approach here?
What water helps us do is connect more authentically with ourselves. So almost this remembering is, how connected am I with myself? So I get women that come and say, I want to have a baby. Or sometimes they're just inspired by the possibility of water and babies and this whole vision. And then the question is, well, why do you want to have a baby? Are you consciously inviting baby through? Is this something that is a need? Is it a want? Are you in service to it? What other babies have you yet to birth that aren't physical babies? Because I'm finding more and more women are sort of serving, let's say, a vision or a purpose on a spiritual level that might not include babies, but feels like birthing something big. And for me, that's a really important distinction, because it kind of shows how fully present can I show up for my baby once it's here. Because then there might be a conflict in one's personality about, I'd rather be, I don't know, serving 200, 300, 1,000 babies rather than having one baby. So it's crystallizing the intention, really.
And through water, by the use of water.
Yeah. However, it's we're obviously online, so how can it work online? And I wish, everyone could come to Corfu and experience it. But I do guide couples as well in how to take a bath. A bath is an underestimated tool for perinatal work. Even a bucket of water. Because once you can tap into that fluid body, the fluidity of our being, then that's where the sort of a lot of the raw information is. And this is how we can sort of start to create structures for whatever it is we're bringing through. I have to say at this point, why water? Why warm water? I love this work because it's profound, it's deep, it's transformational. Sometimes, what shows up is painful, but somehow it's always pleasurable because you're just relaxing in warm water at the end of the day.
And if you're releasing things or coming to an awareness of things, there's a certain satisfaction or fulfillment, I would think, to that piece as well. So that if it might be painful at the beginning, the release of it or the seeing of it could be even joyful, I would think.
This is it. So the sort of reprogramming that happens is, I've just experienced a memory that might not be so pleasant, but I'm straight away putting in a program that says I can be in pleasure in this body.
You have talked about, Sophia, how water is the energy of allowing. And that is such a powerful statement. And if we all embrace that in some way, I think we might even look at the water that we carry to drink every day quite differently. And you talk about how water has helped in memories. How has water helped the families you've worked with remember, and you've had your own memories that you've experienced?
I did.
What's the relationship between water and memory?
So I guess the biggest surprise, I don't know why it was a surprise, but when it happened, I knew I was going to train in water professionally, not just for pleasure, to support pregnancy and birth. And I've been working on myself for many, many years on many themes. But what happened during my first week of training, and thankfully I had a trainer at the time who had been sort of birth informed. When some of the sensations started coming up for me, she said, wow, did you ever consider having a twin in utero?
Can you repeat that again? Having a what?
A twin in utero.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was, I guess, one of the strongest moments in my own healing, because it hadn't showed up before. And it was like, how can it not have showed up before? And that's when I'm committing to water. There's something here that is in the muscles, it's in the fascia, it's in the nervous system, and obviously is ready to be seen and heard. Okay, yes, when I'm ready, but there is a deepness of allowing the body to open up. The body naturally opens. You have a bath and you get all these wrinkles on your hand. Yeah, it opens up, and what's ready to come to the surface just comes to the surface. So there's no real pushing or sort of holotropic breathing. It's just the water doing it. And the more we can allow that to come through, that's the allowing. But then I realized, sort of going through my own memories and sort of piecing my birth journey together, wow, this is how babies experience being in utero. So okay, I'm coming out into the world, rather than sort of bombard baby with input information, what he or she should be learning. What if I start allowing baby to come up with what he or she wants to share? Because babies have a lot to share if we are listening.
And when you say listening, it sounds like you're talking about listening with all of our senses.
Multidimensional being. And this is so when we're immersed in water, then it becomes almost like a Dolby surround environment where our whole body is the transmitter and the receiver at the same time. And we've been taught to output. Yeah. And this is almost the reverse. It's relearning into this, allowing, trusting that what needs to be remembered, what is already there, it comes to the surface. And then when I was working in baby swimming world, it actually shifted my way of educating babies and children. So, a baby swimming class became less about, we're going to teach this, to actually just listening in silence. And then seeing what baby has to say. And it's in this non-verbal listening that so much transpires. You get babies replaying their whole birth story in water.
Wow, right in front of you, I guess. Absolutely. Is that what you're saying? And so
Absolutely. Their moves, their body emotions, if it's been scary. There's a message of, I need to hear this, for example, or I need to be seen for this. And I guess, I know what I'm looking for. And then I can sort of also communicate to mom and dad, hey, have you considered this? Or it's most of the time connected to a baby's experience of themselves while coming through. Then it's about mom, dad. It can also be something in the family field at home that is disturbing them. But most often is that babies weren't allowed to be born in their own time.
Most often they were not allowed to be
born in their time. They've been induced, they've been quickened, they've been playing to an outside clock. that comes from the outside world, rather than having prepared a couple to trust your baby's intelligence to come through when he or she is ready. And then we go back to that allowing, deep allowing and trust that he or she knows when it's her time to come out. So when I come out and I'm too early most of the time, there is, of course, it's a healthy baby, let's say, but I can tell if their essence is fully there. So how can we allow a baby's essence to be fully embodied so they can remember more of who they are? And it's almost, you know, a collective gift, allowing a baby to remember their gifts. It's almost like we need what they know in order to evolve and to, survive an intense time on the planet right now.
It really is. And thank you for sharing your observations and how you sense babies and their journeys. Are there any suggestions you would have for parents, for those in the family field that want to support as much as possible a baby embodying their own essence? Any suggestions you have for things to look for, or how to enable a deeper seeing of this?
Thank you, Kathleen. Which could have water or might not have water. Let's say the practice of listening. I won't call it meditation. It can be intense. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but there is a quality to listening, and trying not to label it of, oh, it's this, this is this. I felt this in my listening. I think I heard this message in my listening. And then having, let's say, a trusted girlfriend or your partner or someone that you can explore the listening, rather than coming from a frantic, fearful mindset that says, oh, I've got to buy this from the shop before baby's born. It's not about a list. And the deeper you listen, somehow you're preparing yourself for the final birth part. And listening to all of it. I do acknowledge fear. It does show up in water because it's there. So it's not about bypassing anything at this point. It's almost one of the strongest tools that we have to work with. It shows where there's past challenges that we can address so that it doesn't show up for baby. So just because you experience, let's say, a cesarean birth yourself doesn't mean that your baby needs to have a cesarean birth. And the great thing with water is once you've started talking about it and verbalizing and sharing it, then through the water, it passes through your whole body as well. So your body, the cells are communicating to your baby then that, you know, it's safe and it's okay. Doing the work, doing the work before baby's born, because then nobody has much time for processing. I had a mama the other day who came for a baby massage, and bless her, she had one of these watches that sends signals. You get your emails on your watch. And I hadn't noticed it because not many people in Corfu have these things. So here is sort of baby's agitated, and I see this thing flash, and it's like, wow, would you mind taking your watch off? And it's sort of daring to say what baby can't. So, and I think you probably resonate with this, Kathleen, as well, like really speaking for those that don't have a voice yet, but feel everything. And we've had that experience. So when we sort of revisit our own vulnerability and sensitivity, then we can empathize, then we can have compassion, rather than be scared of that vulnerable part in us and sensitive part. Because that's where the treasure is, honestly, I think.
This is such a beautiful discussion, and I want to circle back just a moment to your own personal journey. And you have said one of your quotes is that the training for this kind of a role is often also remembering your own birth journey here, and you've referred to this. What does remembering a twin in utero, what does this mean to you? And it sounds like this may have a name. And how did this come about? But also, what's the meaning for you?
Yeah, I guess I could define my journey in life. It's like your soul, your authentic self is calling you back to yourself. It's sort of, how can I reconnect with the deepest part of me? So water allowed me to go even deeper in myself and recalling something which I define as vanishing twin syndrome. It's being spoken about more and more. I guess so many parts of me made sense when I started becoming aware of it and searching a little bit more and realizing it wasn't just me, and having an incredible teacher, David Sawyer, and a water family that holds space for this kind of material with integrity. So you don't start almost losing your mind of, wow, did this really happen? Especially before, like I was born in 74, there was no scanning, so there was no proof. So you're talking about an inner experience that you remember that there's no proof of, that your parents don't know about. It's a lot to process, and to be able to come out and say, yeah, I stand for this. And I'm able to speak about it with authenticity and truth. Because what the findings are coming out with, in fact, is there are more twin or multiple twin conceptions that we actually realize or remember. So many of us perhaps come into this life as a twin, and in the first few weeks it vanishes. How do I know it's there? I was feeling the heartbeat. There was another heartbeat, and then it suddenly wasn't there. And I guess being in water, we hear our own heartbeat. So I could hear this second heartbeat, and it was, what's that? And then this grief, I guess, that I've lived with most of my life. I realized I was born with a whole bunch of emotions that had nothing to do with my mom, my dad. It was already there. And so it's taken me probably, 10, 12 years to digest all the ripples of that realization and all the various emotions that are quite characteristic of vanishing twin syndrome. And to arrive at a point where I can communicate it with joy and as a blessing.
Well, I can imagine that has been quite a journey. I imagine it's been quite a journey for that. When you're talking about years and years of grief and not understanding where that may come from, and that may be only one characteristic that you had curiosity around. So vanishing twin syndrome, how is that explained in the literature, or what does it mean? It means that there is another embryo?
It looks like there's another embryo, but it could be much earlier than that, usually at around, let's say, 3, 4 to 8 weeks. Sometimes a scan might get a second embryo, but very often it's so early, there might be some intense blood loss, let's say, or something like that. Of course, it can happen at any stage of pregnancy, but then it's more visible, and, or you might have a stillborn baby. But then it's more obvious to talk about it. Vanishing twin, people started becoming aware of it when it showed up in scan, and then it just vanished. So it could be absorbed by the second twin. It can be absorbed by the mother, by the surrounding, let's say, uterus, etc., etc.
So somehow in the cell division process, something chemical or biochemical may occur where a second embryo in the making does not proceed and is absorbed within the placenta.
Yeah. For me, it was, and this was a big part, a stepping stone in my healing, was nature knows best. And again, I go back to that allowing of water and the mystery of life. It's hard to accept that there's a bigger intelligence than us. And she knew that baby wouldn't make it. It wouldn't have the resources to suck and to feed. So there weren't enough resources for both of us. So you can imagine the sort of psychological material of working with that in my life. But then there's a deep acceptance that comes at the end of that journey. I've been journaling, I guess, my process, because I seem to have an ability to word it and to retrieve the memories. And I refer to him as Michael. Yeah, so giving it a name. Yeah, however, being a twin, even if just for a few days, some people say you're always once a twin, always a twin, it feels as if my brain is wired for togetherness. There is a wiring for unifying. And when I see that in a positive light, there's almost like a blueprint there for connection, which then reminds me of water. And at that cell level, first few weeks, we are fluid. We're not talking about physical structure yet. We are a fluid being. And what's incredible is that, yes, we're a fluid being physically, but in that fluidity, we're also pulse, electricity, consciousness, and so much, you know. I guess my whole journey has been aware of everything that comes with those moments. Yeah, that's what the thread, I guess I want to pick up again, is how if more of us than we are aware of came as twins, we are wired for connection. And this grief that's been showing up the past couple of years and the global situation, we tend to avoid grief. It's not pleasant. But being able to go there and to sit with it and allowing it, it's almost like being able to bring light and joy into the deepest parts of us. And so I feel more embodied than ever before by acknowledging that part. And then, of course, when I guess I attract, this is what I was saying before, what am I bringing to the water? In my beingness, in my blueprint, in my crystalline structure, I've got this information. So I attract babies, families that perhaps have this in their field. And it's baby brings their parents to me somehow, it feels. So baby, parents say, oh, wow, she knows you. She knows me. She feels me, I guess. And there's a depth of being and knowing that she resonates with. And she can see what I've been through, perhaps, and acknowledge that. And that's, if there was a message now for parents and educators, is be more present. The present we are in the here and now moment, the more baby feels fully seen and acknowledged. And I don't think most parents don't intentionally want to harm their babies. But from my remembering, it's the absence of presence that creates trauma in inverted commas.
Trauma, and what was the second thing you said? Trauma.
The absence of presence is what creates trauma. It's not that a parent intentionally wants to create harm, it's absence.
And sometimes that absence might be that they are trying to pay attention to themselves in some way, and it may be interpreted in another way. And you are so beautifully sharing this journey. I'm wondering how parents becoming more aware of this, educators, healthcare practitioners, doulas, midwives, and all becoming more aware of vanishing twin syndrome, how they might perhaps recognize some signs of it, and what they might be able to do to assist the baby or themselves. Any suggestions that you have for that?
I mean, again, I go back to, especially for birth workers, because the birth field is as sensitive to water. You know, anything you're bringing to it impacts the field. So how much work have you done on yourself? It's not how many births you've been to or how many courses you've done. What work have you done on your own birth material that you're bringing into the field? So including an awareness of your own, let's say, losses, because you can't meet another unless you've been there yourself somehow. And you've got more skills in your tool set to meet baby who perhaps isn't sleeping, is crying, is fully unsettled, is trying to connect with a doll, is very clingy. This is obviously if there are no physical markings or anything like that, or serious autoimmune sometimes conditions that show up. When babies and children start becoming verbal, and this is, I think, thanks to many, many parents who are listening. I think there is a growing community of parents that are paying attention. And if we don't shut a baby down and say, oh, shut up, rubbish, we might notice their drawings. We might notice their dreamings. We might notice that the way they're playing is showing up things from their birth journey and isn't just imaginary play. They're trying to communicate that, Mommy, I have a friend.
So beautiful, so beautiful.
Yeah.
And the opening that can occur within us, who we really are all still children inside. And the openings that can occur for us, for our own lives, is this is something beautiful that you're sharing with us, because it can take us to another level of beingness of ourselves, another level of parenting, another level of seeing and sensing. So many beautiful deepenings, as you're calling them, deepenings.
Absolutely, deepening. I think babies are taking us to the next level. I think the babies that are coming are asking us to go to the next level.
The next level of what? Consciousness?
Consciousness, embodiment, becoming aware of our full capacities as human beings, in the ways that we learn, in the ways that we communicate, in the ways that we love.
Sophia, this has been such a beautiful time with you. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I have coming up to, so my birthday is actually the 21st of December, which is winter solstice, which I found out 2-3 years ago is actually International Vanishing Twin Syndrome Day.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So I created an advent calendar of this time of year of 25 messages sort of birth journey messages for babies still in utero that parents could perhaps use if they're pregnant, one message a day to remember and connect with our baby. But one might also want to use those messages to connect to their own inner embryo or baby. So I've created that as a PDF that your audience can download.
Oh, beautiful. You're offering this beautiful free gift. Thank you so much for that. And so these are beautiful messages from the baby's perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just starting to speak as if baby is as conscious as we are. So yeah, it's baby's perspective, giving baby a voice. And I do actually, I offer a training. I call it Aquagenesis. It's a 5-week module. I'm going to start it in January. For anyone who's curious to go a little bit deeper with this work, understanding water, understanding themselves. It is a learning, but it's also a level of processing and experiencing. And there is a discount for people listening into the Sacred Child Summit.
So grateful to you, Sophia, for this. And you haven't mentioned this, but if it's okay if I mention your upcoming book, because that is the working title is Birth, Memory, and Water, book in which you describe the process of remembering your own birth journey in water and how water can help us all remember more of who we really came here to be.
That's it.
Sophia, thank you for these beautiful gifts. For more information about Sophia and her work, and for these beautiful free gifts that she's offering to our audience, you see the links that accompany this video. And Sophia, thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for listening in.
And sensing. I'm going to be sensing more now than just listening.
Exactly.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.